Dina Cappiello got an early introduction to the skills she would later need as a journalist, bussing and waiting tables at her grandparents' restaurant on Route 31 in Pennington. She loved talking to people and listening to their stories, from the oil executives staying at the motel that just returned from Russia, to the Agatha Christie-obsessed regular that sat at the same small table by the fireplace every week. It was an upbringing that taught her how to approach, to talk to, and listen to all sorts of people, and to respect different and often conflicting points of view. Although she didn't know it until years later, it was a fertile training ground for her future career as a reporter. There were other hints that Dina would make a good journalist, hints that she didn't even recognize at the time. She was always an avid reader, a requirement of any good writer, and her favorite bookshop as a little girl was Book Peddlers in Pennington. In school, she was meticulously organized, color-coding her folders for each class to the subject matter. At Hopewell Valley, she was president of the student council and organized homecoming parades and dances. She loved to learn. She often says that she would have stayed in school forever if she didn't find a job that allows her to learn every day. She was at times an overly zealous researcher. For a social studies paper on European fashion designers, she turned in a 30-page thesis, traveling to college libraries to conduct the research and to hunt down rare materials for her bibliography. In 6th grade Tollgate Elementary, she did a history of the Caribbean island St. Thomas, interviewing people on the island on her family's winter vacation for the paper. Dina also always procrastinated and, like any good reporter, turned in papers at the very last minute. Nowadays, she calls it a deadline. And she was a talker who knew and was friendly with everyone and was always on top of the latest gossip. These days, that's keeping track of the news. Dina left Hopewell Valley thinking that she wanted to be a doctor. She had excelled at AP chemistry in her senior year. And although she also took AP art as well, she decided to go the science route, enrolling in Georgetown University's nursing program to become a registered nurse. She was the first person in her family to go to a 4-year college. But she changed course during her junior year abroad at Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland, an experience she fought and won, being the first science major to take a full year abroad at Georgetown. While there, she found her dual passions for writing and environmental science as she dug mollusks out of Dublin Bay and read great Irish writers like Samuel Beckett and James Joyce. She came back to Georgetown committed to doing something in the environmental sciences. She just didn't know what.
After a year of substitute teaching in Boston after undergraduate studies, Dina decided to apply to graduate schools to be a science teacher. The plan was to write on the side, but on her first day at Columbia University, as she was picking out her classes, she came across a course titled Earth and Environmental Science Journalism. 1 year at Columbia and 1 master's degree became 3 years and 3 master's degrees in secondary science education, environmental science, and journalism. She was determined to be an environmental reporter, even though she was told it was impossible to get that beat in her first job. But she did. Dina started her environmental reporting career at the Albany Times-Union, where she covered General Electric's contamination of the Hudson River, acid rain's toll on the Adirondacks, and she even stalked recycling trucks in her pajamas to discover that some companies were breaking recycling laws. From there, she went to Texas to work for the Houston Chronicle, where she produced an award-winning 5-part series about the toxic pollution from the area's many refineries and chemical plants. She returned to D.C. after getting married in 2007. After 2 brief stints at smaller publications, she got the job she always wanted, as a national environmental reporter for the Associated Press, the largest news-gathering organization in the world. Her work has taken her from the tops of garbage dumps in Mexico to the depths of salt mines under New York's Finger Lakes. She has spent nights on offshore oil rigs and did a first-person column on the Houston Rodeo, and yes, she wore a cowboy hat and cowboy boots. She's caught waves with surfers who ride the swell generated by oil tankers, and she has knocked on hundreds of doors to convince 80 families living in the shadows of refineries to test the air that they breathe. She has eaten dinner in the same room as President Barack Obama, only to then write articles criticizing his policies. Cappiello's work has been honored with numerous state and national journalism awards, and she has been nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. She has appeared on C-SPAN, NPR's Living on Earth, and the PBS NewsHour with Jim Lehrer. In 2002, PBS did an hour special on her investigation into hazardous air pollution near Houston refineries and chemical plants as a part of its series, America's Investigative Reports. In January, she will begin teaching a master's-level environmental journalism course at her alma mater, Georgetown University. But nothing makes her family, particularly her grandmother, happier than seeing her byline in the hometown paper, the Trenton Times. After more than 10 years as a reporter, they still get a kick out of seeing her name in print. Congratulations, Dina Cappiello, on your induction into the Hopewell Valley High School Distinguished Graduates Hall of Fame.
Well, thank you all very much. This is quite an honor for me, and I have to say I'm a little nervous, and I don't get nervous very often, especially when I'm on TV a lot. But I was thinking today what the headline would be for this moment. And the thing I thought of was, small town girl makes good. But looking at the numbers here and how big this high school is, I'm not sure if that's accurate anymore. I graduated with a class of 160 students from Hopewell Valley in 1991. The last time I spoke at a microphone at this school was my graduation day in 91. I was one of 4 students who was selected by my class to speak that day. And the title of my talk, and I still remember it to this day, was Perseverance. And I had to look it up, and I remember thinking about what I was going to say that day, because, as a senior in high school, you really don't know much about perseverance. But I know a lot about it now. And I was thinking about it yesterday. I traveled to New York for work, and I was thinking about what that means and what it takes to persevere. And so here's my advice to you. I am very privileged to have a job that I love, that I wake up every day and I want to go to work. And if you have that, you naturally persevere. You don't even think about it. And how do you, and so the hardest part of it is figuring out what it is that you love. And my advice to you is, it's not what your parents tell you you should love. It's not what your friends think is cool to love. It's what really fits you. And sometimes what I found out in my life is it's not something, that you do well, right? It's not the class you get an A in. It may not be something even that you're good at in school. It may be something that you're just good at personally. My grandfather always used to call me a gasser because I talked and talked and talked and talked and talked. Well, I didn't learn that in school, but that's something that I do every day, all day long. That's part of my job. And so as you kind of go forward from this school into college or wherever you guys go, my advice would be just to think about what really makes you soar, what really, really gets your engines fired up, because I discovered that, and I'm immensely lucky to have discovered that, and that makes life easy. So thanks very much.